Robin, hi, welcome. It's so good to see you again.
It's good to see you, Kate.
Welcome to Stories Worth Telling. Robin Ely, and you have been doing some really interesting work with people who have cognitive impairments. Is that right?
Yes, I have.
Oh, tell me about that.
Okay, so I own Mind Matters. They are daycares for adults with dementia, and I have two locations. One is in Old Saybrook, and that's been open for 4 years now, and the other is in Groton, and that just opened in the fall.
Wow, so that's really interesting. So you actually have a center where people come to, and it's called Mind Matters. Tell me about Mind Matters. How did you choose that as a name?
Well, originally I had a partner who was also a nurse, and she's since left, but we came up with it together. We were just like, what would be good, but not too strong, and make people turn away. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. Some people think I'm a hypnotist because there's a hypnotist named that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And you're not a hypnotist,
No.
but you do magic. You help people to become better functioning and more alert. And
Yeah, I give them some socialization, which is super important for your whole well-being. Super important.
Okay, so imagine I came in to see you and I said, hey, Robin, I just feel like I'm not functioning as well as I used to. I'm in my 60s now. What is the process? How do we go about getting some services?
Well, it tends to be that I get people who are more cognitively impaired than that.
Okay.
So clients usually have their families their families bring them to me.
So I should send you my husband.
Yeah, there you go. And I do a quick assessment, just a screening, if you will, to see where they're at and what kind of things that they're capable of doing. If they're capable of putting together puzzles, what they like to do, that's the most important.
Okay, so start with what you like to do. So you're going to say, well, Kate, okay, so what do you, or Rich was my husband, what do you like to do? And he says, well, I like to do crosswords. And you're thinking, okay.
Yeah. And I try to figure out at what level he would be successful at doing a crossword, because I don't want to give him a crossword that has words that are too hard for him to think up, because the aphasia piece of dementia is very tough for people to search for words and find their meaning properly. So I would start with puzzles that were easier, and then I would use that to build up until I can figure out where he's challenged but still successful.
Okay, so the challenge piece I think is the really interesting part of what I'm hearing you say. So if I had something that was too easy, then it wouldn't be stimulating my brain or helping me to function better. Okay.
He would be bored.
Okay.
And then maybe not want to do it anymore. So it's very hard, and yeah, I have to remember that some things that people like when they have dementia, it changes. It could change day to day. Sometimes this will work, like he'll love doing crosswords for a week, 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden he doesn't want to do them or he can't anymore. And so then we have to find the next thing.
And what would happen? Why would all of a sudden somebody be, oh.
It could be just part of the progression of the disease.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you try to catch people early on, perhaps, so that they don't fall too far into the depths or despair of the disease.
Yeah, that's difficult. A lot of times people haven't realized that my facility exists. So the awareness piece of them knowing that there is a place for them to go, and even just to speak with me or my staff member, just to figure out what would be the best route for their loved one.
Okay.
Might be good.
Okay. So you do some jigsaw puzzles, and what other kinds of things?
Oh, we do everything. We go for walks. Exercise is super important.
So on the walk, what are you going to be looking at? Like my mobility, my balance, my gait?
Oh, sure, because safety is the most important thing.
Of course.
So I need to make sure you can navigate the terrain, but everywhere, like my Saybrook building, for example, has great sidewalks to walk on, crosswalks if we have to cross the street, that kind of thing.
Okay. So,
and I also need people to come back, because sometimes when you have dementia, you don't know where you're going, and then you might not recognize me for a moment. But so I need to really learn the person with the dementia and how they behave.
So a loved one is going to refer, like I would say, my husband should come to see you. So, and that's typically who the referral source is,
Correct.
or nurses, doctors as well?
Not so much. Again, it's an awareness issue. I'm hoping that people will will hear what my service does for the community and use them more.
Okay, okay. So when I'm in your facility, what would a typical, how long would somebody stay with you, I guess?
So that's the thing with my program right now. You can stay for 1 hour or you can stay all day. I do have people that their families need to work and they need supervision the entire day. So they come to me Monday through Friday while their family's at work. And then I have people who just want their family member who has home care services to be at home, and but they really want them to have some socialization with somebody other than their one caregiver that comes to visit them and their family on the weekends. So she comes to me, one of my ladies, for bingo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she just comes once a week for a few hours, and she has a good time, and she gets to see people, and they're now her friends, and sometimes she remembers coming and sometimes she doesn't.
And that really doesn't matter, I don't think, as much as the opportunity for them to be in a different setting, to have different experiences, to be socialized. I think that all of those things are helping them to have a better quality of life.
That is the key, the quality of life for the patient and for the caregiver.
Right.
The caregiver also needs to take care of themselves. They need to get a break. They need to have their own socialization. So all of those things are important for the caregiver, and I offer them that chance where they're in a safe, warm environment, doing something social with somebody they like.
That's really lovely. I really think that you're doing something that's a huge benefit, because my mother was the same way. My mother lived to be 95 years old. If she was alive today, she'd be 101. But when she did. She lived into her house till the day she died.
Good.
She did. She went out horizontally, so that was her wish, totally her wish. And there were moments, I wasn't there with her, but there were moments when I would think, oh, it's a long day for her. Oh, she could use some more socialization and stimulation and that kind of thing. And you just think, oh, it's the opportunity, I think, for people to stay at home and to experience and enjoy their confines of their home, their four walls, in the best environment.
That's right.
So do you set up activities, so like some kind of evaluation, like just to see, like for, like can they fix their own meals or things like that? But
no, I don't do something as in-depth as fixing their own meals. What typically happens is their family will provide a lunch if they're staying through lunch hour. I provide certain snacks that are
healthy.
Prepared, and healthy. Yep. People like those little halo clementines.
Oh, those are so delicious.
Bananas are always good, and then of course cookies. But we just kind of serve everybody. We keep a very good routine. So people will come in and we offer them a beverage. Then we figure out what they want to do that day. And like I said before, some people, they change their minds. And one day they loved to do puzzles, and the next day they want to do bingo. And we have to adapt every day a little bit different.
And you don't know till they get there, probably. So if you write out lesson plans or a program.
Right, that doesn't always work. Well, we do have some group activities like bingo. We do a lot of independent activities too with people.
And what would a typical independent activity be that you might be doing with somebody?
Oh, it could be anything. I have people that listen to music. I have people that paint.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I have a lovely woman who likes to do her art, and she makes her crafts, and she sits by herself. But when I say bingo, she comes to play.
Oh.
And so they have a lot of active games. They like ring toss and cornhole and things they can be a little bit competitive in, even though we don't really keep score.
Oh, well, which is better, right? Yeah, I bet they get a little competitive. Somebody likes to win, and
right, or they cheated, So we have behaviors too that we have to navigate.
I'm sure. I'm sure. And to me, they're kind of like teenagers sometimes, or even almost sometimes like toddlers.
Sometimes. But many of them have led their own interesting life, and when you get to know them and dive in, you can really make a connection. And that's what's most important, is that me and my staff, we make a very good connection with people who were who had interesting jobs, dentists and lawyers and principals of schools, and you can use that to your advantage when they're getting sad, lonely, or they don't understand where they are because they have a lucid moment and realize that they're in a place they don't recognize.
Right, right. So how do you help with that? We used to call that orientation ×3 when I was a speech pathologist. So
And
person, place, and time, just like who you are, and what you're doing, and constantly, and where we are in the calendar, like what day it is, that kind of thing.
I use an orientation board in the background, and it has the date and time, or well, the date and the time of year, I should say. And if the weather is good, you know, or if you need to bring an umbrella, that kind of thing. But most of the time, instead of trying to reorient them to my reality, that it's not, you know, in fact, Christmas right now, it's March,
right,
that I ask them, what do they think? I say, tell me a little bit about what you could do today in this weather.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that opens up, and they'll look around and look out the window, and sometimes they get it right, and sometimes they still don't. But I don't correct them. I try to be error-free.
Right.
And it's one of the Montessori principal strategies.
Maria Montessori.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that her work with the early childhood education is it, but people have adapted it over time to use with people with dementia, and I find that it's very wonderful principle-based approach to use.
I like that. And one of Maria Montessori's quotes that I always remember is, don't do for a child, and with hers, this was don't do for a child what he can do for himself. So I would like to make it gender neutral. So don't do for children what they can do for themselves. Do you find that to be true? Where?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
It's, again, that the continued ability, and even if they do it wrong, I give them every opportunity, say to put a cardigan on because they're cold.
Okay.
And they might button it crooked. And you know what? I leave it. It's crooked, it's buttoned, and I say, good job. And then if we're going out or if somebody's coming in and, you know, it becomes a dignity thing that it doesn't look quite right, I say, oh, it looks like we missed a button, so let's fix that. And then I can fix it that way. But I've preserved their ability to actually do the task, and it takes a long time sometimes, and sometimes they're like, here, this one, and then here, this one.
Right.
And that's okay. That's okay. We let them do it on their own, and because in the back of their minds, they still know they're an adult.
Of course they do.
And that, you know, who's getting me dressed, you know, so.
And they want to be treated with as much respect, I think, as you possibly can provide for them. And I love the idea, I think you called it chaining, where it's like you'll have them do it as much as they possibly can, but then you can finish it, or you get them started, and then what happens?
And I let them finish it to the best of their ability. And again, if it's okay the way it is, I leave it. I do a lot of mirroring. So like, we're going to eat now, you know, grab this spoon. And then they see you do it. It's more of a demonstration, if you will, tactic to take with people.
Okay. And I'm even thinking, you know, with the mirror, my son will do this, like, Mom, like.
Yes, exactly.
So just like, hey, there's a spot on your face, or hey, like, you know, if my hair is crazy when I wake up bedhead, the kids call it, right?
Yep,
like,
exactly.
Like, hey, fix it. Like, you're not looking the best, so we need to do something about that. Okay. So those are some ideas. What other principles do you try to work on or develop in the process?
What's important for my staff, because the principles are for us to use with them.
Okay.
So one of the big things is adaptation. So you can adapt the environment, because you're not going to necessarily change people's behavior, but you can change the environment to allow them to do something. I had a serious gentleman who liked to do a lot of work, and it was work that he found very important, even though it was with cards and bingo cards, and he was organizing things. And I gave him a workspace, and I adapted the environment so that he could have his own place to be and do his thing. I also adapt games. So people like to, I'm certainly not going to bring them a children's game to play. We're not going to take out the old maid cards, you know, with the funny pictures for a 4-year-old. So they play Uno. But I've taken out the skip, draw two, and some of the wild cards, because they don't understand. But they can still match colors and numbers, and it's still an adult game and gives them dignity. Okay,
so they like to play those card games.
They do like to play card games.
Yeah, what happens if you leave the skip in, or the reverse, or the, have you had any interesting?
I have.
Tell me, what happened?
So what happened one time, I was playing with a gentleman, loved to play Uno, and he had played it for a long time with his family. But I was just like, haha, we skipped you. And he was like, it's my turn, and got very upset. So that's when I had that aha moment. We need to remove those cards, and then it will never happen again, and he'll still think that he's gotten the red 7 on the yellow 7, that kind of thing. So it was just a way to adapt the game to make him successful at playing it and keep his dignity preserved.
Absolutely. Well, and it's all about their engagement, and rather than having him feel hurt or removed from the situation because he couldn't continue, then you figured out a way to make it so he's successful.
And I, of course, apologized for going out of turn. I am so sorry.
Oh my goodness! And never would I ever do that on purpose, right?
Oh my, you're right. And so I lose a lot of bingo, and I lose a lot of card games.
Yeah. Well, and I was over at the senior center in Salem the other day, and they were playing some card games that I had never played before, and they're like, sit down, we'll teach you. And I just like, oh my gosh.
It's hard to learn a new card game.
Yeah, some of them are kind of complicated and a little bit crazy. But I think there are a number of games, like Othello. Do you ever play Othello?
And it's the black and white.
Yes. And that's, there's some of these games that could be really mathematically complicated, and you need like a pharmacy brain to kind of
exactly. We play dice, and we just roll the dice, and whoever gets all of the numbers first wins. Instead of trying to play Yahtzee and explain that you roll it 3 times, we just adapt dice to something that they can do. When I get puzzles, I figure out a lot of different factors. How big the pieces are.
So
can they hold them? Jigsaw puzzles, yes. A jigsaw puzzle.
Sometimes they're finger dexterity, I'm imagining.
Correct. And they might have arthritis and other underlying conditions. So I tend to pick a puzzle with big pieces that has color in it so that they can differentiate what might go together. And when I lay out the pieces of the puzzle, I try to do it in a way where they can possibly see the connection. But even though to them it looks like I'm randomly scattering the puzzle, but I might put like the corner and the one piece. And those also can be adapted. There are puzzles that are very good that have only 10 pieces, 36 pieces, 100 pieces, and I just figure out which level they're at to do them. Word searches are always good. You have to make sure people wear their glasses.
Oh, sure.
That their glasses are clean.
Oh, yeah.
So
those maintenance activities sometimes I think can be really hard with people as they age.
Yes, yeah.
And I don't know if it was you I was talking with. I think it was you that we were mentioning, well, somebody might say, oh, my mother takes a shower every couple of days, and then you find out, well, that was always her habit. Like she had dry skin, and she didn't want to have her skin falling off. She wanted to kind of preserve the moisturizers that she had internally.
Right. So I have, I've had families say to me, oh, I can't get, every morning it's a battle to get my mom in the shower. And I'll come to find out that her mom didn't take a shower every day, but just because you do and it's your home and you have this routine, you have to figure out the routine that suits the person.
Exactly.
And it ends up being okay.
Right. If you just understand where they're coming from and who they are and what they were like previously.
Right.
Oh.
So we do a lot of digging into history. And it takes a while. You have to get to know people over time. And again, you have to remember that you have to reassess the situation because it will change.
How frequently do you have to kind of take a look at?
Every day.
Every single day? Okay.
Every day could be a different day. And it will depend too. If people come in and they've had a restless night's sleep, and they don't do well, they might not be as clear as they were the day before. But then they go home and they're tired because we do a lot of activities. And again, like I said, we do physical activities and ring toss and balloon batting and things like that. So it gets them moving and their blood flowing. And then the next day they come in and they've rested well. So then they're much sharper. And it could really be day to day.
Nice, okay. But you're really aware of it. And you'll say, did you sleep okay last night?
We do. We ask. We talk to the families every time they enter and every time they exit. And we explain what they did, what they didn't do, what was different about the day.
Oh, nice, good. And then do they get kind of a sheet when they leave the day? No,
nope, it's all verbal.
Okay.
So
nice. Yeah. Kind of like a little daily verbal report that you give to everybody as they walk out the door. Yeah. Because I would imagine that we call them patients or clients? I
call them my clients. Because, it's not a medical model. It's a social model to keep them stimulated. So they're my clients. And even though I'm a registered nurse and I have other healthcare professional type people in there, we're not doing any kind of professional health assessments per se.
Okay, but do you take temperatures or blood pressures? None of that?
Not really.
No.
I mean, Hopefully we don't have to, because we could if
nice.
somebody fell or something, God forbid.
Right, and do they all have their first alert little buttons on? None
Nope.
of them. Wow.
Not in my facility. That's something the family would do. We have alarms on our doors.
Okay.
We have signs that depict exits and that they're emergency exits, and alarm will sound. These are strategies so people who are exit seeking, you know, might defray from opening the door if they think an alarm's going to sound. And then I can usually re-distract them, because people do get those behaviors like, I want to go home. Where am I? I want to go home. And that's something that frequently happens even when they're at home. One of my ladies' husbands will say, she was asking to go home, so I brought her here. And I said, that's wonderful. And because she just knows it's a different familiar environment. And then when she gets to me, she wants to go home again. So I say, why don't you tell me about your home? Yeah, what is it? Because you're going to get a ride in a little while, and then I can usually get her distracted, walk her over. I've made you some tea, and here, then we'll sit.
Interesting. As a speech pathologist, we used to do a lot of what we call social stories, and the social stories would be orienting them again to person, place, and time, and kind of what the expectations are, and what maybe the problems would be, and how you could just kind of keep them in the moment, in the situation, to help them to sustain the activity or whatever it was that they maybe thought was a little bit challenging.
Yes, I tend to help them reminisce. So I've put people on the spot. So how many children do you have? And they can't remember, and they know they should, and it makes them feel bad. So after a while, I've learned, and I'll say, how's your daughter Sally? Oh, the last time I spoke to her, she was great, even though I know Sally might have just dropped her off. And so I know.
Right.
But that prompts them to have more of a reminiscence than try to remember, and they can't.
So never, what I'm hearing you say, never put them on the spot if possible.
If possible.
And maybe give them a choice, like, do you want tea or coffee?
Correct.
Do you want milk or water?
And
do
you
want
limit those choices so that they still can independently make the choice, but they're making a choice.
Right, and they're maintaining their dignity again too. Do you want to sit
You're
in this?
good at this.
Do you want to sit in this chair, this chair? Yeah.
Exactly, but I wouldn't, I've told people about getting dressed. They put on layers, they put out inappropriate clothing for the season, and I will tell the families, get rid of this stuff that's inappropriate and put out 2 or 3 things and say, Ma, would you like to wear this shirt or this one?
Right.
And then she's made a choice, and you say, oh, it's very rainy out today and you're going to be cold. Would you like this sweater or this sweater? Right. And they can pick the blue one or the red one. And it's just much easier.
Well, it's lovely, too. I think you're just, again, dignifying them as a person, you as a caregiver, minimizing the amount of friction that there might be, like, you need to get dressed. Well, I don't know what to wear. And then they go to put something on, you know, then you can just see the scenario kind of fall apart. But
you can. And then it's, yep.
Right.
So, and you want to make sure you've given in the home, or even where I am, plenty of time to process and execute the next step if you can. So, and that's hard for people. People are in a rush. People need to get ready for work, and you know they're bringing their loved one to me, and I'm like, oh, we had a rough morning, and that's okay. We can fix it, you know.
And sometimes I would imagine that they take a break. They might lie down for a little bit. Or
we have recliner chairs. What tends to happen with me is that I don't like to let people park in front of the TV and just do nothing, because that's a passive activity they could do somewhere else.
Right.
So I do let them, though, because people get tired, and they will start this phenomenon called sundowning in the afternoon.
My sister had that.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, I know all about that.
Yeah, so their behaviors become more difficult, and there's a lot of contributing factors to that. There could be lighting issues, they could be tired. So I try to put the lights on, and I keep a consistent routine to some degree. As much as it's individualized, we eat at the same time every day. We have snack at 3:30 when that starts to happen. I dim the lights a little bit. I put on some John Denver, something that people know the words to. It's very ballady and relaxing. And then they also remember, too, eventually that, oh, yeah, it's time I'm going to get to go home. And so it ends up being good. So meal times. I don't give medications at the facility, but I tell the families that if you're establishing a routine, meal times, sleep, wake times, and medication times are the ones you want to stay with all the time. So.
And having some structure and consistency and all of that.
Right, and then the hours in between is when they're probably at their best, and you can do things like go to the store with them, or take them to an appointment, or have a visit with a friend. if they're not coming to me.
So nice.
I try to do that too at Mind Matters. So like I will let them take a cat nap, but I try to limit it to like 20 to 30 minutes so they're not also awake all night for the family, because that's not going to be helpful at all in the end.
And what about humor? Do you try to use humor a little bit?
A lot of people.
Do they lose their sense of humor, or do they know they have it?
They don't. So one gentleman I take out in Old Saybrook for a walk, and I had to put something in my car. So I brought my keys with me, and I put the item in the car, and I turned to him and I said, better lock the car, it's a high crime neighborhood. And he was just like, high crime neighborhood. And so they pick up on little things.
Of course.
Yeah, and it was very funny because he totally knew what that was, but he would never have said it himself.
No.
Yeah, it was good. So
well, and I always think that humor just diffuses any anxiety, and if you laugh more, I think you're happier and better.
It is. And even if I'm laughing, they start to laugh. Yeah,
it's contagious.
It is. It's catchy. So.
What about music? Do you find music is...
Music is so helpful.
Tell me.
So it can be used as a form of entertainment. I play the violin. And I do. I play the same 14 songs over and over.
But they don't know. Yeah.
And they will sing right along. I play like She's Coming Around the Mountain, things like that. Camp Town Races. And they clap and they sing, and I'll say, well, why don't you name this tune? And I'll play a few bars, and they'll start singing. And that is very good for a few minutes. And then, like I said, we'll put on something that's John Denver. I have one gentleman that likes Billy Joel, but some of the other people don't. So I might put him over to the side with the radio facing him and put his CD in and let him listen to that. And so we do a lot of music programs. I had one lady that came and played the guitar for everybody.
Oh, nice.
And she had brought instruments that they could tap along to. They loved that.
Oh, sure.
And so they're tapping. So I ended up buying some of those, and then at the holiday season, they start jingling along right with me.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
And I was in a music group for a while, and we would go, a singing group, and we would go to different facilities and sing. And people who were kind of slumped back in their chair, all of a sudden would sit up, eyes were alert, focused on us, and singing along.
And they know all the words still.
And I didn't know all the words.
Yeah.
I was like,
that's because you're thinking about them, and they're just letting them come out naturally. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Oh, that's really nice. So what else? We just have another minute or so left. What are some last things that you want us to walk away with, or to be aware of, or to know that there's help out there, for one thing, and there are options? And tell me, what should we know as people who have, first of all, if you're a caregiver, take care of yourself.
You do have to take care of yourself. It's so important. You need to have a backup plan in case something, God forbid, changes in your own life, in your own health, your own person. You need to, and the best thing, people ask me, well, when will I know if it's time for the next level of care, meaning assisted living, nursing home? And I say, you don't know. It's very hard to know. However, you should start preparing now. You might want to go visit a few. You might want to come visit Mind Matters before you're too cognitively impaired, and then you get some resistance met, because then they would be introduced to the idea of going somewhere else.
So those are really good pieces of advice. I think, take care of yourself, offer as much respect and dignity, set them up for success, give them errorless opportunities so that they don't make mistakes if possible, and if they do, dignify the response so that they can...
You're going to come work with me. This is good stuff.
Yeah,
right? You got it. You got it. It is... harder for the family member that has to do it 24/7.
Of course.
It is. And there's issues with family dynamics, and I know people have those, but the best thing to do is just be kind,
and gentle.
Yeah, and remember to adapt the environment if you have to, or adapt the game.
Robin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been a pleasure.
Thank
you so much.